this is what I have so far. So then it's just a draft, and then when I get painting, I'll see where it leads. And I think that's one of the beauties of art, is that when you don't plan out where you're gonna draw, like, it's so beautiful to see where you end up at. And sometimes it turns out trash, but sometimes it makes you recognize the power that you have within yourself. That's one of the satisfactions, and that's why I do art, because it helps you realize how wonderful you are, or how creative you are, and the ability that you're able to create. It just gives you this sense of power that, oh, I can create this. And when you're doing art, you actually find yourself in the making. I was doing this one, and then I just started writing out all my thoughts, and it really helped me in a time of loss or confusion. Or this is one of the times where I just randomly drew on a towel, and I think it's a reflection of the art that I was just looking at. This art kind of reminded me of the Renaissance, where they have the angel. Count the number of times that I say, this is why I love art so much. It's actually ridiculous. It also helps you find a bunch of beautiful patterns that you can incorporate in other artworks. So that's why I love art so much. And also another thing is that music is art, right? And it's actually interesting to see the different forms of art and how it can be translated in. When you're writing, there's also arts and principles in it. Principles and values that we use for our art, we also use it for writing. Contrast. We want this specific paragraph to have contrast with the other ones so it can be emphasized. It's like art. You want to emphasize, let's say, this flower, so you add a lot of contrast in it. And that's actually wonderful. This artwork was inspired by the song, I'll insert it here, and I was just listening to the song on repeat, and I just started painting what I saw in the song, and I think that's actually beautiful. You have subtle background patterns, and it's kind of the drums in the background for music. I recently started getting into oil painting, but oil painting, I only bought 2 paints, and I can't make a whole painting out of that. So I mixed oil paints with acrylic paints, and I made this painting. I accidentally inserted the wrong picture, but here's the actual one. I'm just gonna keep it because it's funny. One thing I don't understand is if you have a reference, people are oh my god, you're copying it, but you're not. Art doesn't just exist within a nutshell, right? Art is inspired by other art, and you can learn a lot about its history by looking at the art, or the time period of the art. The Impressionist style was impacted by the rapid city growth of Paris, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you can learn a lot about history, but also us as individuals by looking through the artists and how they perceive the world. And it gives us a more diverse perspective into the world. And I think we need that a lot in our status quo, because everyone on the internet is just trying to get at each other. Everyone's just trying to prove that the other person's wrong, and we're just listening to other people so we can reply, but not to actually listen to it. If you look into politics, there's a whole lot of polarization within the United States, or even Canada itself, and that's separating us. There is value in both parties. A lot of parties are trying to get people to vote for their side rather than implementing policies for a long-term betterment, or and it's just harmful, because when we have this stubborn, one perspective view, then we can't progress. A lot of politicians are promising a bunch of stuff, but only for when they are elected there, but they don't care about the long-term thing. And that's harmful, especially for our environment, because if we're just thinking about when we are at that position and not the long term or the future, then that becomes harmful, or we leave the problem to the next generation or the next politician. It just creates more problems. We need to be more considerate of other people's views, or just views in general, and stop being so stubborn. Here it goes a little something like... This swan thing that's going on reminds me of Lay's chips. I don't know whether or not to put that in, because that's the most randomest thing. So there's a lot of movement going on here. I'm just gonna add a solid black color to add some unity, because then it'd be too messy. You gotta take those risks, because you never know how it'll turn out. Sometimes it turns into trash and you regret it so much, but then like a day later I'd go look at my art again and be like, oh, it wasn't that bad, I was being so dramatic. Be proud of what you've done. It is something worth being proud of, and I'm not just saying that. I'm very particular about the paper that I draw. It has to have texture in it, but it can't be too expensive. So sometimes I would take really cheap paper and then have a wash of watercolor over it, and then I wait till it dries, and then the back has a really nice texture to it. And then I just sketch on that, and I really love that texture. Like, this is the end result. That's one of my strengths as an artist. I love movement, and I have a good sense of color in my own opinion. I was trying to incorporate that here. So light blue as the background with the tiger, and then the second layer is the yellow. So whether that be the orange thing here and the cheetah thing here. So that's the second layer. And then the third layer is the green forest. And then the last layer are the branches and the black over here. So it's like a bunch of layers on top of each other, but it's also blended in together nicely.